Hey stereo people, good to see you here. Today we're going to be talking about stereo rigs and one in particular, Johnny 5, and we're going to talk about how this contraption came to be and why I felt it was necessary. So I started off with some Sony rigs, the DSC V3. A lot of stereo shooters had a pair of those. Very handy camera. But what I found was, after a while, I realized I'm stuck with the same lenses. I can only be so creative as the composition that I'm picking. Shutter sync wandered quite a bit. They did not handle low light well. They did not handle their RAW format. Sony RAW format very fast, so shoot and wait 4 seconds for the next shot. They were pretty portable, but what I found was that if I went with a DSLR camera, it would allow me to address most of these issues. The weight was the big obstacle. So the very first rig that I built up, shouldn't say built, just assembled. It's a D90s Nikon. You got a dangling little mouse tail here, and the slider is a Jasper slider. It did the job, but you can see that if I set it down, it would always be getting bumped, and I'm worried about the things getting damaged, or even worse, misaligned, because that's something I wouldn't notice until after I got home. So this rig, although it's pretty much the same components as the other, as this guy, the weight seems to be far heavier with this guy, because this one has lots of places to hold it. I could set it down like that. It has a handle on them. That is a really important part of it. If my camera was cumbersome, I wasn't going to be taking it out as much. And if I was working on a project where I have no option, I have to be out with that rig, I'm not going to be liking it, and I'm going to be worried about placing it all day long. So when I was shooting with this rig, I shoot all over the United States, and I found at one point, every so often rather, that I would have needs. The different variables would come up that I needed to control, and so I thought, well, why don't I build a shutter sync that'll handle a few more functions that just make it so I can control buttons and switches, and I can easily look and see what's going on and know where I stand. I don't like digging into menus. Shooting two cameras simultaneously calls for enough of our attention. We don't going in too deep and digging into menus. It was wearing me out. So the new controller added a few things to it. Lightning trigger, independent focus, variable shutter delay, burst mode, double exposure, exposure bracketing, star trails, I could fire big strobes, sleep mode, audio confirmation, focus, holding, dimmable indicators, and master resets. We're going to talk about a few of those items and relate as they relate to some images. So let's see. Oops. I get back to my area here. That is the first of the controllers. You can see it's just a simple relay circuit. It was just out of necessity. It got the job done, but moving up to a different rig, or a different idea, this one now had latching circuits, and it was fully solid state. So it served better, but time marches on, and new ideas, and so this rig was even more involved. But the most recent, that's a, what, 3 layers of PC board, and it is a Frankenstein mess of wire and circuitry. It just it's a lot crammed in there. It could be nicer, but I design when I need stuff, and usually when I need stuff, time isn't on my side. So let's look at a few anaglyph images. If you have your red cyan glasses, that's what we'll be using today. And here we go. Let's see the, where do we want to go here? How about right there? All right. So Sunset rushes in. This was in Carpinteria, California, just below Santa Barbara. The rig in this case, just having a DSLR rig to know that my shutter sync is a complete non-issue, that's a big deal, man. Go out there and you there's so many things going on that I'm having to balance. You're balancing all the variables, and to have to do that successfully and then have the sync off, that'll bum you out. If you've spent a few grand to be on location to shoot something specific, wow, that's an even worse day. So the sync on that is a direct result of having that camera. Forever Alone is this is a cemetery in Interlake in New York, just down the road. And side note, Rod Serling is buried just around the corner there. This is the camera served in this one with a shutter release, a remote shutter release. So it's wireless. So if I need to be out there working with getting the model's hair just right, getting the clothing to do what they need to do, any type of coaching, I can be right there on the sidelines, and then just step sideways out of the frame and wirelessly fire my cameras, step back in, do some more work. In this case, this was 2 exposures. So it was easy to get in there and get the first exposure, get her perfect, and then pull her out, do the second one, and it's just layering up the traditional style there. Having a DSLR also led to getting lenses, using lenses that were more of a proper fit for me. I guess I did my time with the quest for the absolute sharpest, tack sharp everything. That's cool, but it still works. It's still my goal sometimes. But there are a lot of times where I want a dreamy feel. I'm looking to not just photograph what I'm seeing. And I want to photograph more like a memory. I want it to be. I turn my back to the scene, I close my eyes, and I think about what I was looking at, what stands out the most, what are the colors doing, and with the colors or the treatment of the land isn't always what you see. Sometimes your brain will soften things up and it will eliminate some details. That is something that I want to do in camera. There's a lot of work that can happen post-production. Perhaps if I was doing commercial work, that would be an option. If I'm shooting for my own pleasure, I want to get it all in camera, like right now. It's a fun challenge. That's what I look forward to. So using different lenses was a big step up. In this case, being able to slide my lenses apart a bit, that's something I need to be able to do on the fly, smooth and easy. And if I need to bracket my shift. I can shoot under, mid, and over just in case. You can step side to side just a little bit and get a slightly different perspective. And if you are in a situation where you might shoot some keyholing issues, like between their legs. So yeah, that slider can make things move a lot faster. Dry Sedona Sunset. Wow, that was a day when we drove into Sedona for a plein air painting competition that my wife was participating in, and we were in town for probably 5 minutes before we pulled off the side of the road and got to work. And this was sunset. Coyotes were howling, and they were far too close for our comfort. Because it seems like there's nobody around for miles. And so we were probably the nearest lunch. But this, the camera served on this image with the ability to focus the lenses independently and hold that. Now, when I shoot, a lot of cameras will half press of the button, of the shutter button, and both cameras, boing, they find their focus, and you're locked on. That's it. But what if this camera focuses and finds something in the foreground, and this camera is just a little off and finds something farther back? Maybe one found a branch up close, and the other one's way back in the brush. That can be a problem if you like to shoot shallow depth of field like I do. And each image will look, it'll be appealing, great, love it, a single image. When you go to view it as a stereo pair, you'll find the discrepancy in where the depth of field led you astray. Unforgivable. Fun for a family photo, but I wouldn't show anybody that knew what they were looking at. So that independent focus lock, which actually I can show you on this. Let's see. Doink. So in this case, here. Whoop. There, I just locked the left lens and locked the right lens, shutter buttons up top, and we just fired 3 shots. Why would it be firing 3 shots? Well, we'll get to that in a second. All right, so the another thing that comes out of that list of things that I want to improve on, I found that if I'm looking at my camera too much, I'm not looking at where I'm going. I'm liable to fall down. I'm not very stable to begin with. Put me out on a rocky ledge where all those rocks look like little ball bearings, and you fall into the infinite abyss. I'm trying to minimize my things that call for my attention, and I don't need my camera to be something that I constantly check for every little detail. So with the new controller, adding sound to it was a big deal. That little startup sound lets me know I'm ready and rolling. But there's also, if I were to lock one focus, and I accidentally bumped it and turned it on, or I had them both on and I turned one off on accident, I go to shoot, it gives me that tone, a warning tone that says, hey, you got an issue, don't even follow through with the shutter button. And so I was building in different sounds that told me without looking at it what's going on. We were talking about that independent focus locking. Prime example here, that microphone stand with the normal rig, right camera is going to be getting that microphone stand, the microphone itself rather, and the other camera is going to be getting his face, not that far off, depending on what depth of field I'm using. But what if one catches his shoulder and just off his body and all the way back to the background? Terrible. So that independent focus lock, that's how I'm handling that. Portability, also having that solid rig. Concerts are a place where you don't want a heavy, cumbersome rig that's easy to knock out of alignment. So another situation where Johnny Five, which is what I call that guy, Johnny Five, that's he's come served well. Where are we at? Low light. So Midnight Canyon is Grand Canyon. I don't know, probably 1, 2, 3 in the morning actually. But this controller, I can actually separate the cameras off on independent tripods and get super wide shots, or hyper rather. In this case, I probably I think that was close enough to where I just got about 13, 14 inches of lens separation, and made that happen. But the low light sensitivity of these full-size cameras, that being able to shoot in what do you call, not HDR, but shooting in RAW format. I don't know how I lost that one. That shooting low light in RAW is going to get me a lot more nicer gradation in sky and cloud than shooting a JPEG. So that where are we at here? Yeah. So with this, we're looking at a situation that the camera didn't want to handle. It just couldn't handle it well. And in different environments, the particles in the air, it just handles light so differently that I imagine if you live there, you get accustomed to it and you start shooting differently. But I find every time I go out, high altitude, desert, on the ocean, I'm having to refigure exposure compensation and where it needs to be to deal with that light, because it just feels like a whole different creature. And in this case, I would normally probably expose for the middle and hope I get something strong out of it that I can not have any blown out highlights. But with this controller, remember that burst of 3 shots? That's a setting on here. I can set it to press a button, it shoots 1 time, or slide it over, now it shoots 2 consecutive shots, or in this case 3, like 1 bam bam right after the other. And with that, you can do HDR. Yeah, I guess it is HDR, but toned down, not crazy over the top, but just kind of bringing some of those highlights into balance and getting the shadows up where they should be. I wouldn't have been able to pull anything out of that day. It was such a gray, scratchy day. That's a Yellowstone going up towards Mammoth. This rig also allows to connect to a large strobe. So if I have a big studio strobe, in this case, to balance out some of that, some of the dynamic range underneath the trees in these New York rivers or creeks, the dynamic range could be really, really wide because there's bright spots of sun and there's dark shadow. So bringing in a strobe just makes it more fun to play with, have some control over light, and being able to have my strobes talk to the camera, something I couldn't do shooting on a point and shoot. So it also has a built-in star trail setting where I can set the number of shots that I want to do in a row, plus the duration of each shot. So if I want my shutter to be open for 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then I set it to, let's say, 5 minutes. Click. I set the slider below it to 4 times, and it will shoot 5 minutes long, close shutter, start a new exposure half a second later, and it'll do so for the for 4 total. So I got a 20-minute exposure, and in this case I had it set for a little bit less because I'm at 18 minutes for the full exposure, but that's just pretty much stacking up those 5 exposures. And I think I had a little bit of a flashlight illuminating that tree in one of the shots, and brought all the brights out of it. Same concept. This is a 21-minute exposure made of 5 exposures. The tractor itself is illuminated by flashlight. So I'm moving around that flashlight around for a 30-second exposure and getting all of these, or this is a 1-minute exposure, shining the light everywhere I want it to keep piling up and building on that tractor. And then for 4 shots after that, those were 5-minute shots, and those were just recording the stars trailing down. So yeah, that's another case where the remote comes in handy, because you don't, it's so dark. When this was made, it was so dark that I couldn't see the camera on the tripod. I had to find it with my hands because I couldn't see anything. So that is, that's it. Those are samples of what can be done with that controller. I know a lot of people, normal people on the street, look at the camera rig and they're like, wow, what's that? But then stereo people look at the controller and like, why would you need that? What does it do? What do you need to do other than just sync? Well, there it is. If it will also, oops, let me get back into a mode I understand here. There we go. All right, so I was going to show you one more. Yeah, now we have, fit in there somehow, motion trigger, seismic trigger, sound trigger, face detection, time lapse, bulb ramping, and I put wireless remote in there because it's a different type of wireless remote. But yeah, even more stuff that can be done when you plug the phone, my phone into a port. It's allowing even more. Not that I need all that stuff, but you know, you get out in the wilderness and sometimes you just want to have dinner and then go out and play. So this camera's built for play. That's it. If you guys have any questions, do drop me a line at stereoscopejourney.com. And I thank you very much for hanging out and seeing what this thing's all about. So there we are. We'll see you at the next 3D Con for sure. Not this year, but we're counting down. The light at the end of the tunnel somewhere. Okay, you guys, signing off. Enjoy the day.